Thanks for your interest in Nuvolo Clinical Enterprise Asset Management Product Walkthrough. We are going to present to you today a few slides to get some background information about who we are and what we do, and then we'll jump into a demonstration of our product. So I'm Megan Gonyo. I'm a solutions consultant here at Nuvolo, and I'm your presenter today. So we want to share a couple stories with you. How are we helping HTM teams today innovate with Nuvolo? Well, first off, we have a customer use case that we wanted to share with you. This is actually the story of two Texas-based hospital systems that we were talking to, and we found that when we went in there, they were using over 30 different applications across their lines of business. And so as you can imagine, this really created a siloed operating model for them with no end-to-end visibility or accountability. And so what we did was we went in there and we replaced a lot of those systems and put them all onto the Nuvolo platform so that they were able to better collaborate across business units. And then of course they had an increased operational efficiency. That's what they saw. And then when we're talking about increased operational efficiencies, we're also talking about reduced costs. And the way that we do specifically help to increase operational efficiencies is through our mobile strategy. So what I mean by that is we have a mobile application that allows technicians to do their work at the point of service. What we see today when we talk to many of our customers is that the current state is they're printing out their work orders. The technicians are writing down their notes, processing through their work orders on paper, and they may be translating those notes and work order results to the CMMS that they're using at the end of the day, or maybe in some cases even at the end of the week. And this causes at least two problems. The first thing that we notice right off the bat is that it's double the work, right? So we see that they're writing down their notes and then they have to do that all over again in the CMMS. And because they might not get to it right away, we also see a lack of data reliability in this because this process in and of itself is prone to error, right? So we're translating our handwritten notes incorrectly in some cases. Maybe we just can't read what we wrote down before because it was a quick scribble, or even just forgetting to write something down in the first place. So lack of data reliability, but also we're talking about not getting to it until the end of the week. In some cases, maybe we're also talking about timeliness. So we don't actually have relevant data anymore because it's only as relevant as it is, how old it is. So helping business units to make better decisions because now we're collecting data at the point of service through the mobile app. So I'm going to get to the demonstration in a second here, but before I do that, I'm going to set up the scene. We're going to first take a look at what it would be like for your clinicians, your end user staff to interact with Nuvolo and how they would connect up with HTM teams to report an issue. And we're going to show you how to do that through the self-service portal in a couple of ways. Then we'll walk through the perspective of a technician. What is it like for a technician to receive a work order and process through it? And we'll show you that on the mobile app. And finally, we'll take a look at some dashboards we've created. So some of the reporting capabilities that we have for your clinical directors to make better business decisions. Okay, so now what you're looking at is our self-service portal. This is a place where your clinicians would interact with the system. And we're just going to take a step in here really quickly and show you there's a couple different ways of how to report an issue. The first of which is reporting on a simple form. And what we're presented with here is a few fields to fill out. Notice I'm logged in as a user already, so we can have some auto-populated fields just because the system knows, is smart enough to recognize that I'm logged in here and I'm the person reporting this issue. And what I can do here is I can start typing in the asset tag of the equipment that I'm having issues with. And you'll notice here that it's a reference field. So I can actually just select the accurate asset tag here that I'm looking at. And this will help prevent errors in terms of data quality because we're referencing what the system already recognizes. And then you'll notice that what happened over here is the location of this device automatically populated, and we're getting that information from either an integration with your RTLS, real-time location services, or just a last known location of the technician entering a last known location on the work order the last time he or she worked on that piece of equipment. So then what we're able to do here is we can report a summary here of maybe it's just an error code and we need someone else, to come out and fix that. So we submit that and it becomes a work order in the system. If you wanted to enable any auto assignment rules, that work order would get routed to the appropriate group of technicians based on, maybe location of where that is, or skills needed to address that issue, et cetera. The other way that we can report an issue is on a map. So maybe there's an instance where we don't know what the asset tag is, or maybe there's a few different tags on that piece of equipment because of a merger acquisition and we don't know which one we're using, or we're just, I don't know, maybe don't have time to look at it. So whatever the case may be here, we do have another option for reporting an issue against a space. And so, what I'm doing here is I know where I'm located in the hospital, so I'm going to pull up the floor plan. And this floor plan, once it loads here, you'll see that it's actually a floor plan that's coming from AutoCAD. So this is a DXF formatted file coming from a drawing program like AutoCAD or Revit, for instance, where we can pull this in and we make these floor plans interactive. So I'm zooming in here to show you what this looks like a little closer. And you'll see that when I hover over these spaces, they turn blue. So you can see that I can click on any one of these spaces, which I'll do right now. And now it pulls up a little form so I can report my issue. So now the last form that we showed you is reporting an issue against an asset. This is reporting an issue against a space. Now, if there were to be an asset involved or related to this work order, we can actually make that association at the work order level. The technician could enter that in so that all the data that is being processed under that one work order is related then to that asset as well. So we can say order summary here. Maybe there's an infusion pump in this room that is broken, and I can just indicate that there and submit it, and it becomes a work order in the system. All right, so now we're actually going to open up our mobile app and head over to what it looks like for a technician to receive a work order and process through it. All right, so now we're looking at our mobile application. And this is an example of what it might look like for a technician. I'm logged in right now as a technician, and this is my dashboard, what I see. So we have access to things like today's work. These are work orders that came in just today. This month's work, my group's work orders. So this is what I was referencing before when we talk about auto assignment rules. Maybe I'm part of the imaging group, for example, and I'm the one that'll work on an MRI device. Maybe I don't work on infusion pumps, and so that's going to go to somebody else. And then from there, we have our PMs, our preventative maintenance or scheduled maintenance work orders parsed out, as well as our corrective maintenance. These are going to be our break fix work orders. And then we also have access to our asset records. So I could actually click on that. We have a list of all of the assets that were active and operational. And so I could search through there in a number of ways. I could type in an asset tag. I could type in a model name. I can also, if I click here, scan a barcode. So what I can do is use my device camera to scan an asset tag, for example, and then it will recognize it in the system as this particular device. But I'm going to go back because I actually want to show you what it looks like to process through an individual work order. We've got a list here of work orders that are assigned just to me. You'll notice my work orders. And then we can click on this to show you the details of that inside. So what you'll see here at the very top is the start timer. So this is something that we're going to want to train technicians. This is something we'll do right away when we open a work order, because now what this is doing is it's collecting information of how long is it taking us to process through this work order. So things like productivity can be measured through that metric, as well as if I have a labor rate tied to my name, tied to my user record, we can also calculate a work order itemized cost that will roll up to that work order and also to the asset involved in that work order, so that when we go to report on things later like total cost of ownership of this device, we have that information rolling into that. All right, so other details of the work order here, we see what asset is it, where is it located, what group is it assigned to, etc. We also have the ability to display contracts information. So this is a service contract that actually is telling me as a technician, oh, maybe you want to call GE because we do have a contract with them that covers 25% of labor and parts. So here's the contact information. So it's a way to present that information to technicians. A lot of times they don't have access to that today, and work is being done where it's not needed. All right, so I'm just going to flip through some of these tabs here. What we're looking at now is a procedure checklist. So procedure checklists would be relevant here for preventative maintenance work orders or very specific, onboarding, inspection, safety checklists, that sort of thing. So then you can digitize these checklists so they're not looking for their service manuals anymore in paper format. And it's all right here for them. So we can actually go through and click yes or no. We also have the opportunity to say pass or fail, or even collect data on certain numbers. So a text field, just typing something in. So that would be valuable if we're ever doing utilization metrics or calibrations, stuff like that. By the way, if something says, if you say no or something fails out of this checklist, we can also have the ability to automatically create a corrective maintenance work order to address that particular failure. And then those two work orders would have a parent-child relationship to each other so that we know it was a result of this work order. All right, so then over here we have itemized costs. You can see there's a couple labor entries already started. That's a result of me starting and stopping that timer a couple of times on this particular work order. We can do that as many times as we want to, and then when we close out the work order, that will all add up as a particular cost to that work order. We can also add parts. So we do parts inventory and management as well. So if I wanted to add a part, I just say add itemized cost, then I select part, or I select, what type of a cost is this that I'm adding. It might even be travel time, for instance, if I'm a traveling technician going from campus to campus. And then, when we do add a part to a work order and we're selecting which stock room that it came from, we can also have rules in the background running to say, we always want this many parts in this stock room of this type. So when we set a replenish threshold like that, when we add parts to a work order and we dip below that replenish threshold, now we can kick off a purchase order request automatically to get more parts into that facility. So we never run out of parts. And then we also mitigate the issue of not being able to complete a work order simply because we're waiting on parts. Okay. So then we also have the ability to attach records to this work order. We can use our device camera, for instance, to take a picture of whatever we want to and attach that as a record. We also have the ability to sign your name and attach that as well. So if there's ever a need to collect signatures. And then finally, related work orders. So this is your history of work orders against this particular device. So it helps the technician on the spot to see maybe if this particular error has happened a lot recently, or who has last worked on it. Do I need to contact them to see what's going on, etc. All right, so I'm going to get out of that here and we'll dive into some analytics. So we'll go back to my browser here and open up the administrative tab here. So what we're looking at right now is a dashboard, and a dashboard is basically a personalized dashboard of many different reports. So I can put all of the reports that I need as a manager, for instance, in one place so that all I can do, or all I need to do, I should say, is scroll through and see everything. So we put together a couple of different tabs relating to these reports. For instance, here we've got operations and we're talking about work order status by assignment group, device problem, cause, trends. So now we're taking a look at, was this really a device failure, for example, or was it improper use? If it was improper use, maybe we need to think about putting a plan in place to do more education around correct use so that this problem doesn't happen again. Mean time between failure of your devices, total downtime by asset tag, overdue PMs, and it's parsing it out by which technician has which overdue PMs. By the way, these are all drillable, so if I wanted to click on this one, we can see that Ben has 15 overdue or incomplete work orders, and so then we can see exactly which work orders those are. I'm just going to go back here to the reports. Okay, daily workload by assignment group, assets with multiple corrective repairs, average time to close, yearly estimated PM hours, and this is by facility or assigned technician. You can see that if we build the reports to be interactive, we can change the data right on this dashboard to look at different parameters. PM status by technician department, total work orders by facility in the last 30 days. So there's a couple more here, productivity report, etc. And then what we're going to do here is I'll go over to the financial tab. So the first report that you'll see on here is a snapshot of all of the service contracts that we have. So you'll remember that when I showed you in the mobile app, we have the ability to display that an asset is under contract to the technician. But then if from a manager perspective, we also have the ability to show them basically what kind of value are you getting out of these contracts. So we know, for instance, what we paid for the contract initially. And what is our realized value? Our realized value is coming from those work order itemized costs that roll up to the contract. So if we know that that asset is under contract and the vendor came in and worked on that contract, or I'm sorry, the work order, and completed that work order under the contract terms, that cost of doing that work is rolled up to this contract. So now we have a % ROI. And, you know, we also are displaying an end date here because, you know, we want to be able to see if we're nearing the end date of our contract, we should ideally see this contract be over here in the green, above or at or above 100%, so that we know that we got the value we paid for. If not, maybe it's going to encourage some sort of negotiation beyond for renewal, or even just not renewing that contract at all. All right, so then we have this chart here showing all of our assets, and we're talking about projected end of life of those assets and measuring by total cost of ownership. Highest cost of service ratio by asset, cost of service ratio by asset type, acquisition cost, you know, what did we pay for these devices, active equipment, equipment sources by asset type, vendor sources for repair parts, and then spend on parts. And then finally, we have a compliance tab. So this is going to be the information that's going to be helpful to you for your environment of care meetings, for instance. So equipment damage, abuse, how many medical device failures caused patient harm, and operator errors, we're keeping track of those as well. Equipment installed by quarter, similarly equipment retired by quarter. What equipment do we have following an AEM schedule? And then your PMs. So PMs due this month by state. So these are open work orders and these are closed work orders, closed, skipped. And then we'd have all sorts of other statuses, you know, closed or maybe pending approval. That would all show up here. And ideally by the end of the month, you want all of these to be in a closed state. So it's kind of a fill the bucket process, or watching that dial, the circle fill up to be whatever color is your closed complete state. So we also have % closed on time. So not just closed now work orders, how many of those closed work orders were actually done on time. And then of course, just displaying it over the last 12 months here, that same metric. So that is an overview of the Nuvolo clinical application to manage your assets and work orders. And if you have any questions, feel free to contact us. And thanks for joining.